This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 63 with Anthony O'Neill. Today is March 29th, 2022.
If we focus on influencing and impacting people, we can produce income. If we chase income, we won't influence and impact people. One thing I have learned, especially like doing what I do, if I serve a lot of people and if I help a lot of people get close to their goals and close to their dreams, the reward for serving is green. It's income.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I am a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This podcast is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Before we get into today's episode, please take a couple minutes to go into Apple Podcasts, if you're listening from an Apple device, to rate and review the podcast. If you appreciate the free resources that are provided in this podcast, then the best way to let me know is to do just that. Reviews help the podcast be more visible, and it helps other dreamers discover the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate you. And now let's get back to today's episode. Hello. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Anne-Lyse Wealth, and I'm excited that you've decided to tune in for today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. If you've been around for a while, thank you for continuing to show up, and I hope that you are learning from each guest. If you're a new listener, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that you stick around. Whether you've been around for a while or you are new to the podcast, I appreciate you. And if you haven't gotten a chance to leave a review yet, please go into Apple Podcast and leave us a review. So we have a repeat guest today. Anthony O'Neill is here to talk about building influence and maximizing every season in your life, including your single season. So in this episode, we touch on how to build a strong network around you, the key steps to maximize your single season, and Anthony shares the tips that he used to go from being homeless and in debt to now being a #1 national best-selling author who has helped over 250,000 people get on a path to live a debt-free life. Anthony's very popular podcast, The Table, has reached 15 million people in 15 different countries. So much wisdom from Anthony. I suggest that you actually go back and listen to episode 31, where he shares even more about his story and how to build a $1 million network. All right, here is Anthony O'Neill. Anthony O'Neill is here. Ayo, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Anne-Lyse, thank you so much for having me back, man. I've been looking forward to this. We had to reschedule it because of snow, but we're here. So we're going to have a conversation. I'm excited about it. Thanks for having me on, sis.
So for any of the dreamers who might not be familiar with you, can you share a little bit about you?
Yeah. So my name is Anthony O'Neill. I am an influencer who's passionate about helping millennials, minorities, and single people really maximize the season that they're in, getting out of debt, building wealth, start building a solid foundation that we can build on. And so I'm really excited about where we are. I currently live in the DMV area, and it's pretty cool. I racked up about $35,000 worth of debt. I went into college, didn't have the wisdom, didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the skills necessary to start building wealth because my family really couldn't give me exactly the information that I needed because they didn't have all the information. And so because of that, I racked up all of this debt and I became homeless at the age of 19. I spent all this money to impress her, to impress him, to only find out that they were only my friends because of what I could provide for them, not because they actually cared and valued me. And so I learned a lot during my young season at the age of 19, contemplated suicide, questioned my religion as far as if God really loved me, and questioned my family, if my parents loved me, because my family wouldn't allow me to come back home because of the poor decisions that I made. And because of those decisions, I became homeless. And so to make a long story short, because I really want to make sure that I can get into some content and really help your people who are listening to us today, I was able to get myself out of debt. I quickly realized that I wasn't a grown man at 19 years old, that I had to really structure myself to become the grown man and get around other grown men who are wiser than me and learn from them too, so I can evolve and to grow into that man. So went back home, apologized to my parents and said, hey, I'm not a grown man, but I'm ready to learn. And then two, my niece, I went out there and got 3 jobs. I was like, you know what? I'm going to maximize my single season and start reading more, start doing more things. But at that time, on a financial tip, practically, I worked 8 to 5 for a bill collector company, a collection agency. I just really, really took advantage of that season. And I'm telling you, man, I was able to pay off debt until today. I'm 100% debt free, excluding my mortgage. And I just traveled around the world teaching people, specifically millennials and minorities, how to get out of debt, how to start building wealth. Then I have a new passion of teaching singles how to maximize their single season and be a good steward of the season that we're currently in. So that way, when God does send us our spouse, when we do get into whatever the next season is for us, we've maximized this opportunity of being single.
So you went from being in debt to obviously getting out of debt, thriving financially, and teaching other people how to get better with money. And when you were on the podcast last time, you talked about the importance of building a $1 million network.
Yeah.
One of the feedback that I received, 2020 and 2021 were tough years financially for a lot of people. And one of the feedback that I receive is, well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How can I build a $1 million network? So can you maybe share some actionable items that people can take today to get to a point where they have a strong network around them?
Yeah, I think one of the things we can do, Anise, is number one, off the top, is to eliminate our debt, is to take debt off of the table. There's a study that comes out for minorities that they say by 2054, we will have a 0 to negative network. Let me say it one more time. For Black people who look like you and I, by 2054, we will have a 0 to negative network. Today, in 2021, a study came out last year that the average African-American's net worth is $11,000. What do we have to do to really start getting to that $1 million net worth stage? What do we have to do to start really building wealth? Is the study also revealed that we're drowning in debt, that we have these jobs, we're not making enough money. And because we're not making enough money, we're not stewarding that money well enough. We're going out here and we're racking up debt. We're getting the credit cards. We're getting the student loans. We're getting the loans. We're purchasing the cars that we don't need. We're buying homes that is too much for us, or we're renting apartments that is too big, is too much for us. So the very first thing is what we got to do is take debt off of the table, because debt is keeping us from really advancing forward and building true wealth. Because as soon as we get the money, watch this, we work Monday through Friday. We put in hard labor Monday through Friday, get our paychecks on Friday, and we go home and we give it to someone else. And that is not okay. That is not what you want to do. And so for me, if we're going to build wealth, the practical thing is take debt off of the table. If you want to build wealth too, is you got to maximize all of your investment opportunities. Okay. If you have a 401k at your job, if you have a Roth 401k at your job, if you have an HSA plan at your job, if you have matches on your 401k, your investment stuff at your job, you got to take full advantage of that. I always suggest when it comes to building wealth, you got to take advantage of compound interest. So I say invest 15% of your income into a Roth 401k, especially if it's a match. Like let's say if you have a job, these are the 3 things you look for. Number 1 is you look for a match. Then you look for Roth. Then you look for traditional. You want the match because that's free money. If you put in $1, your company puts in $1 up into a certain percentage. And then from there, you want the Roth, because Roth means it grows without taxes because you've already paid taxes on it. So here's a difference between traditional and Roth. Let's say at 55, you have a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA. Well, that money has not been taxed yet. So when you retire at 55 or when you go to take the money out, whatever your income status is at that time, you're taxed at that rate. If you follow my plan, you're making more money at that rate. And so if you have a Roth, you've already paid taxes on it. It grows tax-free. So let's say you're making $50,000 a year now. And let's say at 55, you're making $1 million a year. You're in 2 different tax brackets, but guess what? You're not going to get taxed at that tax bracket because you've already paid money on those taxes. So if you really want to build wealth, is number one is take debt off of the table, start investing into retirement accounts. And number three is a key thing that I think a lot of people, millionaires, need to be doing more of is living below your means. Just because you make $100,000 a year doesn't mean you need to spend $100,000 a year. Just because you make $55,000 a year doesn't mean you need to spend $55,000. So those are the three practical things I would say to build a net worth of $1 million. Take debt off of the table, maximize on your investment opportunities. And while you're doing those two things, live below your means.
And so how do you also build a network, $1 million network?
Yeah, I like that. So when it comes to a network, as far as in relationships, man, that's powerful. What you have to do is you got to start surrounding yourself around with people who actually make $1 million and people who have the mindset of making $1 million. One of the things that I do is I actually go out. I just moved to the DMV area, right? So I joined this organization called The Gathering Spot, a bunch of young, successful African-Americans who are making 6+ to 7+ figures within their businesses. I'm joining a small group to where when I just get around the table, I'm not saying anything. I'm just going there and I'm listening and I'm learning and I'm watching and I'm studying and I'm asking questions so I can learn more. Just because I'm successful, yes, in this area of my life doesn't mean that I can't learn something. So number one is you got to surround yourself with the people that you want in your network. Here's number two. When you get in the network, be quiet. Be quiet. Ask questions and respectfully be quiet. God gave us 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth for a reason. Ask and listen more than you talk. Even if you know the answer, still ask because there could be a better answer than your current answer. And so I encourage people from all over, man. If you really want to build the right network, number one, get in the rooms. Make the investments to get inside of the room. When you get inside of the room with that network that you want to build, listen and watch more than you actually talk. Number 3, take notes and go over those notes and come back and apply those notes.
Love that. So you said that recently you discovered a passion when it comes to teaching singles or helping singles maximize their single season.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what that looks like?
One of the things that I get frustrated about when it comes to being a single man is I'm tired of being asked, why am I single? I'm tired of being asked, when are you going to have kids? I'm tired of being pushed into marriage. And they don't really teach singles how to maximize this single season. They don't really teach singles how to build a fulfilling and a successful life. They don't really teach singles, how do we honestly sit here and steward this season well? So when I do find that wife, so when you do find that husband, so when you do have that family, you spent your single season bettering yourself, not just getting or looking like you're ready for marriage. And I remember one of my mentors, I won't say this particular mentor's name, but it was like, man, you're 35 and you're not married. There's something wrong with you. What? Huh? So because I'm not married means that there's something wrong with me? He wasn't asking me. She wasn't asking me. This individual wasn't asking me, hey, how are you working on yourself? How are you starting to build wealth? This person wasn't asking me, are you getting mental help? Are you seeing a therapist to really talk through some of the things in the past that may or may not be hurting you? Are you stretching yourself outside of your comfort zone? No, everything was, oh, what's wrong with you?
It's so interesting because, as you said, there's a lot of pressure when it comes to pushing people to get married and not necessarily doing the work on themselves. So a lot of times people get married and then now in the marriage, they have to figure out their mess.
And it was because no one gave them the blueprint on how to maximize and steward their single season. There's 2 things that I wish high schools would have gave every single senior and give every single senior. Number 1 is, hey, here's a financial literacy course. And I mean, every student needs to take the basics of foundations when it comes to money, right? Here's the basic foundations when it comes to money. The number 2 is, hey, here's how you need to steward the next few years of your life while you're single. Here's how you get ahead of the game. Because the last thing you want to do is get married and then decide to work on yourself because now your spouse is identifying, yo, what is wrong with you? Wait. No, let me tell you what happened. Everyone told me I need to be married before I turn 25. Everyone told me, hey, when you get in a relationship, your goal needs to be marriage. Everyone told me that, yo, if you don't have kids by the time you're 30 years old, ladies, and your eggs, you need to freeze your eggs. What? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, cool. I get all of that. But the bulk of the training for singles need to be, yo, what am I reading? How am I growing my mind? How am I stewarding my body? Am I taking care of my body? Am I launching a business? Am I educating myself to where I can be the best employee? Am I working on my identity, my self-identity? And that's really been my passion because, man, at my age now at 37, I'm not going to say all of my mentors, because the mentors that I have now, they don't talk to me that way. They genuinely do care about my life. They genuinely do care about my well-being and bettering myself. One of my mentors told me, Anthony, everyone knows you as the money guy. Everyone knows you as the get out of debt guy and build a foundation guy. And he said, and I know you as that, but I know you as the maximize your single guy. I know you as the guy that meant every room you got into, you maximized that room. I know you as a guy, every mistake that you made, you learned from that mistake. You owned it and you learned from it. I know you as the guy that you left the Black culture and went into an all-white culture and you maximized that season while you were there. You learned, you made mistakes, but you learned and now you're growing. I know you as a guy as every opportunity you get, every person that you meet, you're going to maximize that. And he was like, man, you need to teach single people, don't chase the bag. Go get a job, get the income. But before you chase the bag, before you chase her, and before you allow him to chase you, what have you done for yourself? Because my mentor told me this a while back. He said, Anthony, if I give you $1 billion today, can you steward that well? He said, if God gave half of these singles $1 million today, they couldn't steward it well because they haven't really learned themselves yet. They haven't really built a solid foundation yet. And so that's really been my passion is I've learned I can teach people how to get out of debt in these, but if I don't really change their mindset first, if I don't really teach them first, it doesn't make any sense. So now on top of my get out of debt message, build wealth message, I'm really focusing and honing in on singles and teaching them how to maximize this season. So when they do get married, I believe we'll see less divorces. Why? Because now they're getting into marriages whole. They're getting into marriages and they work through some things that they should have done while they were single. And because of that, they're healthier, they're wiser, they're more mature, and they know why they're going through things. So that's why I don't want to talk too much. I get passionate about it. So let me be quiet.
So what are some of the ways then that people can take action today to start building that solid foundation so they can maximize their single season?
One of the things is, man, they could join my course, the Singles Blueprint, 8 Pillars to Maximize Your Single Season, because I'm spending 8 weeks to walk through the 8 pillars that I believe every single person needs to work on. And I'm going to be honest, this has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with money, but practically nothing to do with money. One of the pillars that I'm really diving into up front is embracing your uncomfort zone, embracing the season of not being comfortable. I think a lot of people, a lot of singles want to be comfortable. They don't want to be stretched. They're scared to be stretched. And let's be honest, I'll be transparent here on your show. I left an all-Black culture. I was an associate pastor for a mega church out of Jacksonville, Florida. And man, I can go to the Jaguars game for free. I could call the mayor. I can call the school superintendent. I can call the NFL players and just have a great time. I was respected in the city, but I was called to teach and talk to all people. And I was called for a season to go work with Dave Ramsey. So I left the all-Black culture and went to a majority all-white culture, which was great. And it was very, very uncomfortable because take away the color, it's 2 different cultures. And so when I get inside this culture, I'm just like, man, whoa, wait, I got a lot of learning to do. And so I became uncomfortable for a season. But you know why? Do you know what? While I was uncomfortable, I wrote a #1 national best-selling book. I sold over 100,000 books to help young people and to help all people get into colleges without racking up debt. I've been able to jump on the Ramsey show and talk to 12 million people to help them get closer and closer to their financial goals and dreams. I've been able to build a YouTube channel that has impacted over millions of people and impacted that. I've been able to launch a podcast that is great. I've been nominated for Success Magazine, I've been able to do all this. Why? Because I was willing to be uncomfortable. And here's the thing that we're talking about inside the course. Don't allow your comfort zone to become your kill zone. What I mean by that? Don't allow being comfortable to be the same thing. You be the same thing that kills your dream, that kills all of the potential inside of you because you're not willing to step outside of your comfort zone. that business idea, that relationship, that friendship, that $1 million idea that you have inside of you, getting out of debt, it could be prevented because you're not willing to be uncomfortable. To get out of debt, you're going to have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You may have to work 2 or 3 jobs. You may have to come home and have a side hustle. You may not be able to see your kids every night before they go to sleep for a season. But here's the thing. When we step outside of our comfort zone and we enter into the uncomfort zone, honestly, the new remix is we step outside of our comfort zone and we step inside of our faith zone. And so we're going to pray like it all depends on him, and we're going to work like it all depends on us. And inside of my course, I'm really teaching how I did that, how I embraced being uncomfortable so that way I can impact and influence more. Because watch this, when you impact and influence people, it produces income. When you influence and impact people, it produces income. And so I'm just going to lay down that foundation and teach people how to really, here are the 8 pillars. Here's what you need to be focusing on while you're single. And we're going to add on to that as time goes on.
So you just said when you impact and influence people, it leads to income. So are you saying that we should focus more on those 2 things versus trying to get more money?
Absolutely. I think if we focus on influencing and impacting people, we can produce income. If we chase income, we won't influence and impact people. One thing I have learned, especially like doing what I do, if I serve a lot of people and if I help a lot of people get close to their goals and close to their dreams, the reward for serving is green. It's income. And so I think people say, well, Anthony, I'm not an influencer like you. I don't have a YouTube channel. Cool, great. When you get on your job, and let's say you work for Target, okay, cool. How do you influence every person that walks through that door that comes up to you at the cash register? How do you impact that person who's looking for that particular jean or that particular heel? How do you make them smile? How do you make them remember, man, I really liked her. I really liked him at this particular store. I want to come back to Target. I want to come back to Target because you impacted me. Because you impacted me, I told your boss. I told the manager, I really liked the way she took care of me and the way she served me. She made me feel embraced here at Target. Thank you, Target, so much. Cool, great. Now your manager is looking at you because of what you've done. You've influenced and you impact. Now you get a promotion, which is more income, which is good on your resume. Now you can go from there and build upon that. And so everyone keeps saying, well, Anthony, I'm not an influencer. How do I influence and impact people? You influence and impact people anywhere, everywhere you are. If you work in the taxi, we're in the tax season right now. If you're someone helping people file taxes, hey, how are you educating people on how to save money? Everyone that sits down in your chair and engages with you, the first step should not be, okay, how can I make more money off of this individual? No, the very first step should be, okay, how can I influence and impact this individual's life? And they come back, whether to my business or whether to this store. Let's say you're an employee. There's nothing wrong with you asking them, hey, yo, if I've served you well, would you mind sending my supervisor or my manager an email just letting you know of your experience with me and this amazing company that I have the opportunity to work for? You do that. That produces income. And I remember chasing income monies and not influencing people and not impacting people. And that turned around to bite me because now I became money hungry. And when you become money hungry, you'll do things that hurts people. You'll do things that's misleading to people. Now no one will trust you. Nobody wants to work with you because you was trying to chase income, the money today. Now you lost money because you did people wrong. But if you flip it, if you're always influencing, impacting people, you'll always be making money.
That's a gem, really. Service first, income second.
Yes, ma'am.
So for anyone that is listening to you, ready to take action today, whether they're single or not, what are some of the steps that they should take right now to create a better future?
Number one step is I want them to write this down if you want to have a better future. And that is to remember that the caliber of your decisions, the caliber of your choices, the caliber of your future will be determined by the caliber of your decisions you make today. So if you want to change your future, change your choices that you're making today. If you're saying, hey, I want to be a millionaire within the next 5 to 10 years. Cool, great. What choices are you making today that gets you to that? If you want to build your dream home in the next 2 years, cool, great. What choices are you making today that will get you to that? Let's even go down even a little bit more to a more relatable standpoint. Anthony, I want to get a pay raise. Anthony, I want to get a job promotion in the next year. Cool, great. in a year of 2022, right? Yeah, 2022. What are you doing? What choices are you making every single day? Are you showing up to work on time? Or are you showing up to work maybe 5 minutes early and smiling in everyone's faces and saying hello, even when you don't even feel like being there? Even when you just got into an argument with your boyfriend or with your girlfriend and they done made you upset, how are you still showing up and producing on your job that leads to that promotion, that leads to that pay raise? What decisions are you making today that will impact where you want to go? So that's number one. Number two is you got to have a clear vision for your life, okay? And when I say this is something that single people and all people need to really focus on. I literally walked through a 5-page document on how to write a clear vision, a clear direction for your life. Because when we have a clear direction, anything and anyone and any opportunity that comes into our life needs to be aligned with that vision. Here's why I've been able to build the success I've been able to build. It's because if it doesn't align with my vision, it's an easy no. I'm not saying no. My vision is saying no. If she comes into my life and I'm like, yo, she cute. How you doing? But her vision, her lifestyle doesn't align with my vision. I'm not saying ew. I'm saying, hey, babe, you're a great woman, but where you're going, what you're doing with your life doesn't really align with where I'm going. And so we're two great people. We're just not in alignment. So let's just not even go further, but we can maintain friendship or do whatever. But let's say this. She comes into my life and she's complimenting my vision. We're going the same direction. It's a clear and easy yes. Why? Because I took the time to cut off distractions, to cut off the phone, to sit down and write down my vision. And I can almost guarantee 9 out of 10 people listening to us right now don't have a clear vision. But I can almost guarantee that 9 out of 10 people who don't have a vision, they want a vision. They just don't know how to write a vision for their life.
So in your course, you put an emphasis on character versus currency when it comes to dating.
Yes.
Can you expand on that and why it's important?
Man, that was so good. I was talking with my good friend, Tony Gaskins Jr., and I said, man, this generation of ladies, man, it's how much money does he make? Is he a high value man? Is he bringing in income? Can he provide for the family? Which I think on one side of things, that is a fair expectation for our ladies and for our queens. We need to make sure that men can provide. But on the other side, I think where I get frustrated at is they'll pass up a good man because he's a school teacher and he makes $41,000 a year. School teachers, in my opinion, police officers, in my opinion, firefighters, in my opinion, who don't make a lot of money, but put their life on the line to protect us, to serve us, and to serve our kids who are knuckleheads, who are bad. Those are men and women of character saying, you know what? I'm not chasing $1 million career. I want to chase and impact and influence lives. Those are men and women of character. And in my opinion, men and women of character can produce currency. But a man who only can produce currency doesn't mean he's a man or woman of character. And so inside of this course, we're focusing on the character side of things, not the currency side of things. Because what I found was I was teaching everything about currency, but I wasn't teaching character. I wasn't teaching lifestyle. I wasn't teaching your inner side. I was teaching, hey, get out of debt, get an emergency fund, invest into this, which is all important. But I started learning that people were dropping the plan, and they were dropping the plan because I haven't helped them build character. I haven't helped them shift their mindset. I haven't helped them. For me, I want our ladies to really understand, and me and Tony Gaskins talk about this in my course, that yes, currency is important, but character is more important. Because a man with character, a man with integrity will want to provide for his wife, will want to make more money, will want to love and protect and lead his family. But a man who's only focusing on chasing the currency, he may not care about you. He may lie to you. He may mislead you. He may hurt other people just to make currency, just to make money. And so we're teaching character first, then currency. Because if you have character, even if you lose a job, even if you lose money, that young man, that young lady can always bounce back because they have character.
I love that. So, Anthony, I always end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but the Black Choice. This one was a very good book. Both of them are good. Think and Grow Rich, the original one, but I really love the Black Choice because it took Napoleon Hill partnered with a Black author and they added in Black relatable stories and examples. So the Black community can really be impacted by that book, because that's one of the best books in the world to read, Think and Grow Rich, because it talks about the mindset and it talks about the lifestyle. And so I read both because I learned a lot from both, but it felt good to really see stories from the Black community. So that was one book that changed my life. I read it once a year.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Don't worry about impressing her, because she's going to leave you anyways. So just stack your money, live below your means, and the right woman will come. Because right now I said yes to a whole bunch of girlfriends, but I wish I would have said no so I can tell my future wife more yeses. So I would just tell my younger self, forget the young ladies. Just focus on you and maximize your single season, son.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
The best investment I've made in myself was actually into myself, as far as in branching out and really launching my business for me. That was the best investment. We're in my studio that this is the first time I put a lot of money, I put a lot of time, I put a lot of thought, I put a lot of resources into this studio because I wanted to invest into me so I can invest into you all. And so that's the best investment that I've made, was stepping out and trusting and believing in Anthony O'Neill by myself and building my own thing.
Filling the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is?
Money to me is freedom, options, love.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Anthony loved the kingdom, he loved his family, and he loved people.
Well, Anthony, thank you for stopping by the podcast once again. Please tell the dreamers where to find you.
Man, they can find me at anthonyoneil.com. If you go to anthonyoneil.com, you'll be able to find everything there, every single thing there. My social media information. I have a lot of free assets when it comes to how to get out of debt, how to have the hard conversation while dating around the areas of money. There's a lot of free resources there, a lot of resources when it comes to my book, Debt Free Degree, and even a lot of more stuff. So just go to anthonyoneil.com and you'll find some information.
All right. Thanks, Anthony.
No, thank you.
That was Anthony O'Neill. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. You can find the episode show notes and all of the links mentioned at dreamoflegacy.com. If you liked today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review the podcast to help the podcast gain more visibility. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to tag me at thedreamers.podcast on Instagram and let me know what you liked about today's episode. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.